Wendi Mae Davidson had a big heart. She did. She was a veterinarian. And a lot of times people become veterinarians because they love animals. She grew up with animals in the home. She cared about them so much. She loved them. This is exactly what she wanted to do. But unfortunately, very early on, Wendi got fired as a veterinarian. She would later go on to find another job. She would tell another veterinary clinic that was in town, oh, my old one didn't align with my morals, so we split ways. But that's actually not why Wendi got fired at all. See, Wendi was such a sweet girl. She was such a nice girl that she wouldn't euthanize the animals. The last straw for Wendi's job was one day when a client brought in a litter of kittens and they appeared to be sick. Well, it was determined that this litter of kittens had a highly contagious fungal infection that was detrimental to children, that was detrimental to other pets, just human beings in general. And unfortunately, the protocol for this was to euthanize the litter of kittens. And you guys know, Wendi is not going to do that. Wendi is no. We're keeping these cats, okay? But she can't tell them that. So she's supposed to euthanize the cats. And then she's like, you know what? Why don't you guys come home with me? Now, this was a little worrisome because Wendi has a son, and this infection that the cats have, they can make her son extremely sick. But she's got a big heart. And pets first. She takes care of the kittens day in and day out, trying to nurse them back to good health. But there were so many of them, and to Wendi, it was kind of an arduous task taking care of this whole new litter of kittens that were also extremely sick and needed to be very separate in the house. And so she kind of decides, because Wendi's a kooky person, okay? She's a kooky person. She goes, okay, well, I think they're better now. I think the cats are better now. I'm done here. That was fun. I'm going to take them back to the vet now. And so that's what she does. She nurses them slightly back to health. But with these types of infections, it needs to be completely cleared out. But Wendi was a little just kind of like exhausted with dealing with the cats. So she brings them back to the vet kind of one by one. And she says, look, you guys know how I am. I took care of them. They're better now. The vets took the entire litter back in, and Wendi had saved all of the cats. God, isn't that how we wish it ended? The reality is she did not fully take care of this infection. She barely did anything at all. She just wanted to rescue the cats in her mind. When she brought these cats back to the veterinarian, they were still wildly infected and extremely contagious. And they realized it when it was too late. Unfortunately, all 28 cats that were at the veterinarian for treatment, these were not stray cats, they were not just random, they were people's pets. They all got this very serious fungal infection. And another doctor was then tasked to go from putting down this litter of kittens to having to put down all 28 cats in the shelter, all because Wendi wanted to take them home and do a half-assed job. But what's interesting about Wendi is she has way too big of a heart to intentionally hurt an animal. But a human, she'll kill a human. In fact, she'll murder a human being, stab them over 40 times post-mortem, and then afterwards, she'll get rid of the body. Today's sponsor is Aura. Don't forget to protect your data online. Get your data off the internet, okay? It's not the same fun playground that we knew 10 years ago. Well, it wasn't really even that fun back then. Let me remind you that a lot of the businesses that we trust online with our email addresses, our names, address, passwords, all of that stuff, they have to pay extra money internally within their company for cybersecurity. They have to allocate budget in order to keep your data safe. And some of them don't. They'd rather put their dollars into marketing or graphics or videos or something like that. And then they don't really care about the cybersecurity. And that's when your data gets leaked. That's why there's services like Aura. They're able to delete your information from all sorts of websites all over the internet. These data leaks are why you get so many random spam calls, or why you get like seedy emails in your inbox all the time. It's because all of your information is out there. And look, Aura's got you covered with family plans too. You never know when your kid's gonna like pop off on social media doing something, and then now all of your information is at risk because you're all tied together. I cannot express to you enough how much internet protection is a necessary service for all of us. But it's just about finding who can do it the best at the right price. And that company is Aura. The best part is it only takes a couple minutes to sign up, and then you just leave it running, and you and your family are protected online. So if you want to actually give it a 14-day trial, you can go to aura.com/sinister. It's Aura, AURA.com/sinister. Okay, let me be clear. I don't like anybody that we talk about on Sinister because they're murderers. But sometimes when we talk about certain cases, you guys might find a certain soft spot for somebody that went through some severe trauma before they did what they did or something. You know, I totally get that. This is a funny one because like, I just like straight up do not like Wendi Mae Davidson. Like, she's just a weird person. The best word I can use to describe this woman is kooky. She's kooky. I'm going to tell you all about her crime today from A to Z, but I have a lot of extra information about just like her as a person, some of her past relationships, things that she did. And like, she's just a weird fucking person, bro. Like, she's somebody that's just like, what are we going to do today? Like, she just has weird energy. And look, I started this video off. I started it off by telling you Wendy's best trait, which was caring about animals. But then when you just mix in everything else about her, it's just a nightmare. But before we jump in, there's a video of her that I want you guys to see because I just want you to be on the same page with me about this woman. Here's an interview that she did just a couple of years ago after not speaking for 15 years. And oh, she admits it. She moved the body, but she claims she didn't kill him.
Shane was only 4 months old, so I'm almost positive that he was asleep through that whole thing.
Shane is her son.
I do remember they were both asleep when I got in the truck because I put them in the car seats.
So your two boys are in the car seats in the truck, and in the flatbed is your husband who's dead.
Yes. Unfortunately, yes, that's the truth.
Who kills their husband and then says, unfortunately, yes, he was dead? Okay, let's just... We're in Texas. Wendi Mae Davidson was born to Judy and Lloyd in Texas in 1978. She seemed like a great kid, you know, just doing her studies in school, not overachieving, not underachieving, got along really well with her little brother, which is like a nice little sign, right? Not a lot of like sibling rivalry, not a lot of like attention hogging, no weird resentment, major age gaps, nope. She and her little brother Frank got along pretty well. She loved him. And man, look, if I have a kid that does pretty good in school and they get along with their siblings and they're always down to sit at the dinner table with us, I'm like, great. This is a good kid. Like, let's just keep good kidding it up, and you're going to get a couple inches bigger and you're going to keep being good, and I'll just keep doing what I'm doing. So I don't know, like, Wendi has one of the most normal upbringings that I have ever explored in a case, ever. So her dad, Lloyd, also was really into exotic birds. He owned an aviary, but it wasn't just birds that he liked. He liked all types of animals, and he cared about them a lot and had a soft spot for them. So the house was always full of these just kind of like unique, sensitive, small little animals, and Wendi and Frank really gravitated to it. Oh, they were such animal people. God, you put some little kids around some little furry woodland creatures and they're so happy, you know? And Wendi loved it so much, she decided that when she was 7 years old, she wanted to be a veterinarian. This makes sense. This totally checks out. Now, Wendi didn't have any like major traumas. And I mean, like, look, we're all digging through the court documents. We're looking at interviews with her. Generally, when killers are trying to like appeal or they're going through the court sentence, oh, they'll just blab out every single thing that happened to them. And like, there really wasn't anything major that happened to Wendi. She was extremely socially awkward. Like once she got more into middle and high school, you know, she signed up to be a cheerleader. She signed up to be in like certain clubs, but she just wasn't making friends. Now, part of this could be because her dad was practically Dr. Dolittle and he didn't really have any friends. He was just talking to animals all the time. And so Wendi also ends up growing up being this like me, like, ooh, bird, you know, type of person. Like she's giving like horse girl energy, right? And she didn't really know how to talk to people, you know? She was just in this house with her bird dad, bird brother, maybe bird mom, and now she's bird girl out in the world. And people thought she was a little weird. It's also interesting because like she was pretty, but they just thought she was weird. Not only did just people in general think that Wendi was kind of odd, but she had a lot of difficulty forming relationships with other girls. So she went through middle school and high school not having like a girl group or like a best friend or anything, and just kind of dove into her studies. But even with that, she ended up graduating a little bit under valedictorian. And so that also made her a little upset because she felt like she was coming in at the end of the race for pretty much everything that she did. And it was kind of a heavy feeling. It was annoying. Everyone wants their moment to shine, and she was just like waiting for hers. It felt like it was never going to come. Her family was really proud of her because she had accomplished quite a bit, but she just never got that relationship or that friendship or, you know, that number one status on something. And it was just kind of disappointing. So she continues her studies. She goes to college, continuing to pursue being a veterinarian. This was not something that she just said when she was a kid and it kind of like fell off and she found other interests. No. Wendi she's an animal girl through and through. But when she goes to college, she kind of like finds something else that she likes a little bit more than animals, and it's boys. Oh, Wendi loves guys, and they're giving her attention, okay? She's, 18 or 19 years old. She's in college. Like I said, people thought Wendi was a pretty girl, and she learned that she can just go home and hook up with guys. This is not something that she was doing like, when she was in high school or anything. She wasn't meeting a lot of people, but in college, it's like everywhere. Wendi was pretty well known for like prowling the bars in the area. Even though she was underage, she would, show up, get a drink, and wait. She started seeing multiple guys. It felt so good. And she's having she's not dating these guys. These are all just like one night stands. It's just like rendezvous after rendezvous. And like, she doesn't care. Like, it feels good. Now, she is trying to pursue relationships with these guys, but it's all happening so fast that they're just kind of hanging out with her for a night and then not calling back. Like I said, Wendi's a little funny because on the outside, she looks like just like a normal Texas college girl. But when you start to talk to her, you just realize something's off. Like, something's just really off about her. And so like, these guys were not down. They're like, yeah, we can and then I'm getting out of here, sister, So she's having this revolving door of guys that she's meeting on campus. And this isn't like a rotation. She doesn't have like a roster where she's like seeing these guys over and over again. They're in and out, and like, let's find a new one. And she ends up getting pregnant. She ends up getting pregnant by this guy named Ryan. And she's pretty insistent that it's Ryan, but like, also she kind of knows in the back of her head that like, she's had a lot of partners, so it may or may not be him. But she's like, I think it's you, and our families should meet and we should get married. You see how this is so like, it's moving fast, everything is so, where are we going, Wendi? So this guy's name is Ryan Reitz, and Ryan didn't believe that she was pregnant at first. Like, I'm telling you guys, like, Wendi is somebody that just gave like crazy girl vibes to all these dudes. And Ryan is like, no way. Like, it can't be mine. And Wendy's like, oh yeah, it's yours. And he's like, no. Like, we need to go get a test. And she's like, okay. So they go to the doctor, and the doctor confirms Wendy's pregnant. And Wendy's saying that it's his. He doesn't know about her sexual history. And now this girl that he did have sex with is saying that he's going to be a dad. So because we're in Texas and it's a little more traditional, Once this pregnancy is announced, Wendi is really excited and she tells her family, and they're like, okay, well, this is all pretty quick, but they're Southern Texas family. Like, yeah, okay, let's take in our grandchild. Let's be good Christians. And also, we need to go meet Ryan's family. So they plan a little day. And remember, this is the first time that Ryan's family is meeting Wendi. And they're not only meeting Wendi, but also her parents. And then vice versa. And it's awkward. It's weird. It's uncomfortable. Like, these two were not even dating. Ryan's family didn't know Wendy's name before they even found out he was having a kid. And this is just like, oh my God, it's so tense. It's not a happy reunion. And it's so bad that it actually ends with, in person, Ryan's family telling Wendi and her family, we think that it's best for them to not be together and we will support the child, but we do not support this relationship. And that was that. They basically shunned Wendi and told her to kick rocks and send us the invoice for the baby. Like, that's what they told her. And God, when you think about it, this probably had to be very disappointing for Wendi, but also at the same time, you and I are probably looking at it like, dude, this is crazy. Why are you going to have a baby with this man? But it's Texas. Just go. I don't know. It's summertime, so we're thinking about the smell of the beach, the smell of some barbecue, maybe even some sunscreen. But if you don't use Lumi, all we're going to be smelling this summer are your stinky little pits. Lumi is a whole body deodorant. From head to toe, you can make sure that you're smelling great. And my favorite thing about it is it lasts 72 hours. Now, look, don't get me wrong. I'm like, yes, reapply your deodorant every single day. But knowing that Lumi's got you covered for 72 hours, don't you feel a little more secure? It's baking soda free, it's paraben free, and it's pH balanced, so it's safe to use below the belt. Now, look, one of my favorite compliments to ever receive is somebody telling me that I smell good, okay? And not only is Lumi going to protect you from being told that you smell bad, but it's actually gonna get you a few more of those smell good compliments. Do you wanna smell like toasted coconut, clean tangerine, maybe a little lavender sage? Oh yeah, Lumi's gotcha covered. And I got you covered with a discount. But reminder, Lumi has so many different products. And if it's hard to choose, why don't you just start with the starter kit? It comes with a solid stick deodorant, cream tube deodorant, and then 2 free products of your choice. So they wrap it all up in a little bundle where you still get to like select a few things, but you don't have to think way too hard about it, and we'll get you a little discount. Now, the starter pack is already discounted at 15% off, and when you use my code, you can stack it on top. So 15% off, and 72 hours of body odor protection. We can't go wrong. So use my code Sinister for 15% off. That's LUMEDEODORANT.com. That's right. Off your first purchase at LumiDeodorant.com, just use the code Sinister. For some reason, Wendi starts to have doubts, and she was like, well, maybe I actually have had a lot of partners. What if it's not him? Like, what if it's another person that's supposed to be the baby daddy? And she ends up going through with the DNA test with her and Ryan, and it turns out it wasn't even his kid. It was not his child. So now Wendi is a single mother, and she still has to continue her studies and become a veterinarian. So she ends up giving birth to Tristan in 2001 and goes along with school. She graduates in 2002, and she's ready to move into her veterinary career, single mom status, but like doing it. But those old patterns that showed up in college kind of start to resurface. I mean, her hooking up with all these dudes, this was like clearly a cry for help, attention, wanting to be important, wanting to be number one in some capacity. And it's still there. And so, she was kind of still seeing people before, but after she graduates and she doesn't have the distraction of school, it just ramps up again. And she was trying to see anyone and everyone she could. The first one, which is shocking, happened a week after she got her very first job in the veterinary field. Another employee had their teenage son. I don't know how old their teenage son was. I'm not sure if they were 15 or if they were 18, 19. I don't know. But it says the employee had their teenage son drop off a pager to Wendi. Wendi gets the pager and thinks he's cute, so she ends up inviting this guy over to watch a movie. Or kid, I don't know. And also, I'm just going to say it, like, even if he's like 18 or something like that, bro, Wendy's like 24 at this point. Like, it's a little creepy, Wendi, okay? And who hits on their coworker's son? What the fuck? So, I don't know. But she asked this kid to come over and watch a movie with her, and they end up in bed. Oh, okay, wait. And let me just correct this here, because actually I did find out. He's 19, okay? He's 19. But it still stands for me. Who hits on their coworker's son? And then 2, she's much, much, much older than him, okay? So this guy is 19, and Wendi had seen him about 2 or 3 times, and she starts talking about a long-term relationship with him. And he's like, what? Like, then he tells her, well, hey, I'm 19 and I'm actually about to go off for college. And Wendi said, well, I'll go with you. I'm not kidding. And then he said, well, I don't want a long-term relationship. And then 2 weeks later, he was out. And then next, she dated the brother of a coworker for a few weeks. I also just want to reiterate, even though we can't see what type of behavior that Wendi is exhibiting, it is a major, major red flag that she's only having like one night stands with these people and they want to get away with her. There's no callbacks. Nobody's coming back. Nobody wants to like raise children with her. These relationships are only lasting a couple of weeks. Like I'm talking 2 to 4 weeks. It's like they see something in Wendi and it freaks them out and they run. Because I'm thinking about this and like I'm a little weirdo. I think something's wrong with me. I think I'm a crazy girl. I think I have crazy girl energy. But like I don't, have a rotating door of people that come hang out for 2 weeks and then dip, So like I think Wendi is exhibiting something like some fucking crazy eyes or something, and they're like, no. So she dated this other brother of a coworker for a few weeks, and a couple weeks into them dating, she told him, guess what? I'm pregnant. And he said, oh, bye. And then he dipped out too. Now, in comes one of Wendi's big ones. His name was Jeremy Gonzalez. She and Jeremy dated for a while, and he really seemed to like her and stick around. The relationship was a bit rocky, but they actually went on for quite a few months. It was about 8 or 9 months until Jeremy ended up losing his job, and he was in a tough spot. So the relationship really, really hits a hard patch. And then on top of that, Jeremy started using drugs, and he didn't really have any money. So maybe Wendi had to fund this, or he was doing sketchy things for it, but it just made things difficult. But to top it all off, Wendi's parents did not like Jeremy at all. And they actually didn't like him because he was Hispanic. They were racist. They felt like just because of his ethnicity that, oh no, he's not good for you, honey. And so they stepped in and really pushed Wendi out of this relationship, trying to convince her that he was just a really, really bad guy. But it wasn't because he had lost his job or he was doing drugs. They said he was bad because of his ethnicity. So that's what type of people Wendi's parents were, okay? They also had a lot of say in her relationships. It was very strange. So we already have Wendi, who's an odd person, and now I'm starting to see this image of her just having way too much of a bond or investment with her parents. Because when she started dating the next guy after Jeremy, her mom, Judy, didn't like this next guy either. And it wasn't like a racial thing this time. It was just like, she was like, no, he's not good enough for you. And Wendi would listen, even though she wanted the affection of these men so bad. If Lloyd and Judy, her parents, didn't like the guy, she would get cold feet. Another interesting thing is the last guy she dated was a dude named Joel Bird. And this is the one where Judy was like, no, I don't like him. With Joel, she dated him for a few weeks and then immediately jumped into making wedding plans with him and his mom. And then a few weeks later, guess what? Wendi's, quote, pregnant again. And so I really couldn't tell. I don't know if all of these pregnancies are real, if half of them are real, or if I have no idea. But every time she dates a guy, Wendi's like, I'm pregnant. But she will act like she's a traditional woman that wants to get married, wants to have the baby, da 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 da. But if the guy rejects her, she'll terminate the pregnancy. So in the case of Joel Bird, she claims that she terminated the pregnancy. With the coworker, she claims she had a miscarriage. It's just constantly stuff about a baby. Will you have this baby with me? Or, okay, I guess I'll get rid of it and find the next guy. And these are all happening in a matter of weeks. So Joel is over. Joel is done. And Wendi still needs to go find herself a man, okay? She does what she always does, and she hits the bar. Also, I don't know who's watching the kids. I really don't. But Wendi really be out at the bar. So she's out again one night in December 2003, and that's when she meets 23-year-old Staff Sergeant Michael Severance. Mike was just out that night having a few drinks with his friends, hanging out. You know, he's on active duty. He's a military guy. He was just out in the area staying with his brother. And that's when he meets Wendi. And look, Wendi know how to pull somebody at a bar. She knows. She might be socially awkward, but she has figured this piece out, you know? So she approaches him and starts, laying on the charm thick. And he's eating it up. Everybody else sees crazy eyes with Wendi, and he sees a little potential. So much so that he doesn't even go back to his brother's house that night. He goes back to Wendi's house. They have a little night together. It's fun. Maybe, because Mike does not call Wendi the next day. He doesn't. They actually don't talk for a little bit after that. See, when you look at the patterns, Wendi is doing some weird stuff. I don't know what she's doing, but people don't like it that much. Now, another thing that I noticed is there's this kind of like connection where Wendi was always doing weird stuff at work, but after she got rejected by a guy, she would do more weird stuff at work. So remember when I was telling you about like all of her relationships? The one where she dated the guy for 2 weeks, you're like, oh my God, BOZE, which one? But one of those, when he rejected her afterwards, she like kidnapped a dog from the vet. It was one that they couldn't keep anymore at the shelter. It wasn't like a contagious infection or anything, but she just like kidnapped the dog and took it home with her and was like, okay, well, he rejected me, so I'm going to keep this dog now. And she would take these animals and then they would just like disappear. I really do not think that Wendi was like hurting these animals, but I think that she was taking this rejection and concentrating some kind of affection into, but I'm a good person because I love this animal. And then she was doing something weird every time she got rejected. So this time she hooks up with Michael. He doesn't call her as usual, but Wendi really likes Michael. Like there's just something about him, but she doesn't express that, she doesn't call him and say like, hey, I really felt a connection. Instead, she goes back to doing her weird thing with animals. So this is how we got to that situation that I told you about in the beginning, where she took this entire litter of kittens home that had this fungal infection, exposed her son to it, exposed herself to it, exposed other potential people to it because she was caring for the cats, and ultimately ended up bringing them back. And what I really want to emphasize here is like Wendi didn't like actually think that she had like fully cured the animals. She just had gotten what she wanted out of it and she was done now. So let's bring them back to the vet. That part really, really bothers me because in her brain, she wants to parade as this person that loves and cares about animals. And I do think that she does, but she is so careless that this act of supposedly saving, 5 cats or so ends up being the reason why 28 cats were now dead. I also really want to emphasize here that I am not a veterinarian, so I don't understand the details of their protocols, but I am a cat lover and a cat owner, okay? Mr. Stanley is running around here somewhere. I don't like to think about them feeling like they need to euthanize a litter of kittens. I think that's the most depressing thing ever. But then also, it's incredibly depressing that people dropped off their animals for illnesses and thought they would be picking them up that day or the next week. And apparently this fungal infection was so serious and so risky to other animals and human beings that these cats unfortunately had to be put down, and another veterinarian had to go through that. It's not fun for people to put down animals, especially veterinarians that love animals. And Wendi was so careless of the other animals once she had gotten what she needed. She put all these people in this position. So the best the clinic could do to protect future animals is to fire her. The clinic didn't want to ruin her life, I think, because they probably felt like this came from a good place, what she was trying to do. So they just fired her and washed their hands of her. But she went, to another clinic, and she was talking a little smack. She said, my morals didn't really align with theirs. They wanted us to euthanize all of these animals, and I don't like to do that. I want to save animals. And so the other clinic was like, oh, okay, we totally get that. Yeah, we're not going to call them for reference. Screw them. Yeah, well, you can work with us. Come on. So she ends up getting another job in Lubbock, Texas, and she and her son moved there. But, Wendy's got this weird little thing where it's like men and animals, men and animals, men and animals. If I get rejected by a guy, I'm going to do something weird with an animal. And then if I'm tired of the animals, I'm going to go look for a guy. She's just on two wavelengths. And now that she's had this, honestly, probably traumatic experience from all of the cats at the veterinary hospital dying because of her, I'm mad about that one. That was very stressful. So she goes back to her other default, which is, hey, I'm pregnant. The mind of Wendi Mae Davidson, the brain, the 4 brain cells of Wendi Mae Davidson. So she calls Michael after the one night stand, and she's like, hey, I'm going to be a mom and you're going to be a dad. And for the first time, the guy on the other end says, really? That's so exciting. Michael was open to being a dad. He was a good guy. After he finds out, he calls his dad right away and tells him. And his dad's like, how long have you known this girl? And he said, well, it was a one-night stand, but I don't know what to do. Mike was really worried about this kid because it was his. In his eyes, it was about to be his biological child. And after talking it through with his dad says, well, look, son, here's what it is. Either you get married to this girl, you support the child, and you try to make it work, and maybe there's something beautiful there. Or you get married, it doesn't work out, and you divorce, and you keep supporting the child. So, ball's in your court. They kept talking for a little bit, feeling it out, hanging out, and after a couple of months, Michael asked Wendi to marry him. After all of these years and seeing all these guys, this is all she wants. A guy that her parents approve of, that she can have a baby with, and he's going to be like, Wendi, I love you. Now go do weird stuff with animals. That's literally all she wants. Well, she tells her parents about Michael, and this is so weird to me. They didn't like him, and not this time because of his ethnicity, but actually still where he came from. He was from Northern America. And so they kept calling him, is this a derogatory term? I don't think so. Okay, I've looked this up and it says that it's, quote, informal and often derogatory. I'm just going to say this because I don't think this is the end of the world, but this is literally what they kept saying about him. They kept saying that he was a Yankee because he was from Northern America. So they're in Texas and they're so America ready, America first, that you can't even be from New England. God forbid whatever Jeremy Gonzalez was going through, because they were like, oh, this guy. But Michael, nice guy in the military. It's giving Texas. He's down to get married. He's a Christian, but he's a Yankee. That's what they kept saying. So Judy and Lloyd, Wendy's parents, that, they realized that they had a little power, a little say in who Wendi was dating. And, then this guy comes in the picture, Michael, and they're like, you're dating a Yankee. I'm going to stop saying that now because I don't think it's that derogatory. I'm from Virginia, but it does say derogatory, whatever. I don't know. I just wanted you guys to catch a vibe because it's so ridiculous, right? So they don't like him because he's from New England. So they decide to get married, just a little Texas courthouse wedding. But Wendi really doesn't even tell her parents that she's pregnant or she has a boyfriend that she's possibly going to get married to, until the day that they actually meet Michael and she brings them to the ranch. Now, they were planning to get married in September 2004, and plans were set. Like, this was happening. So this is the meeting where they announce it. And Judy, I don't know if she's kind of like a control freak or what, like Wendy's mom, but she immediately hates Mike. One, it's the New Englander thing. I think two, it's that they were planning to get married and Judy didn't get to like approve of him beforehand. And then she claims that it's because he was kind of lazy and distant. But it's like, bitch, how are you going to call somebody lazy on your first meeting? Like, if I'm coming to meet somebody's parents that I'm dating, I'm not expecting to do labor. What am I being lazy about? So I think that she had some control issues and didn't like him and then just kind of made up the rest. Like, she said that he was, quote, rude, disrespectful, and lazy, which I also find interesting because all of the accounts of Michael's character from people that he worked with in service, his family, like, nobody uses those words to describe them. I think that Judy's a control freak and she's bullshitting, but anywho. And like, let me be clear, Judy could not hide her disdain for Michael in life and in death. Like, we'll get to the interrogation tapes. But she really didn't like him. And I'm sure Mike felt this a little bit. But, you know, regardless, he and Wendi go home. And I don't have exact details on it, but I think that we're back in our cycle where Wendi starts doing weird shit with animals because the clinic in Lubbock, they were like, okay, you have to go. She was about to be fired again. They had spoken to her several times and she did something else. And they were just like, okay, let's, you know, ease out of this. And she knew it was coming. So she spoke with her dad, and Lloyd ends up getting a friend named Terrell to buy a like facility so that Wendi could open up her own veterinary practice. Like, she keeps getting fired from these hospitals, but they think, well, these people are so bad. The solution is you need to have your own practice. Let me tell you, the last thing that anybody needs is Wendi Mae Davidson running an animal clinic, okay? But regardless, that's what they do. So Terrell was actually a former veterinarian, because remember, her dad's like Dr. Doolittle, so those are like all his little homies. And Terrell believes in Wendi. He's also close friends with Lloyd, so he ends up buying this clinic. It basically will do well as an animal hospital. He's been doing this for years. He knows what to look for. But it needed some renovations. So Wendy's parents also believe in her practice, and they dump $40,000 into renovating this place. And it takes a couple months to get it together, but the deal is they put all this cash in. Wendy's going to pay $1,500 a month to rent the clinic, and then it's all hers, and she runs a business. $1,500 a month for your office, and it was in a busy area in the city they lived in. Like, that's a steal, right? Of course, she's going to have a lot of other business overhead, but Wendi can barely do her job as a veterinarian. How is she supposed to run a business on top of it? You got to order stuff, keep the medication together, you got to do accounting. She didn't have to do any of that, and she was already fucking up. So I don't know why they thought this was a good idea, but they did, and everyone invested in it, and ta-da! So the clinic is under construction, and then September 1st, 2004, that's when Shane is born. That's Wendi and Michael's baby, the one that kind of brought them together. So Wendi has her oldest son, Tristan, and then she has her new son, Shane, and then she and Mike ended up getting married 2 weeks after Shane's birth on September 13th, 2004. And while the wedding is going on, remember Mike's parents, they haven't really interacted with Wendi too much, but it's at this wedding that Mike's dad, his name is Les, he notices that Judy doesn't like his son. Wendy's mother does not like his son. And it's upsetting to him, but he's kind of like a quieter guy, and he just kind of thinks please don't let her cause any trouble. Please don't let this crazy lady cause any trouble. Let's just have a holy matrimony and everybody's going to be good. So everything's moving pretty quickly. Like right in the beginning of the month, that's when Shane is born. Middle of the month is the wedding. And then right at the end is when Wendi actually moves into her practice. It was called Advanced Animal Care in San Angelo, Texas. And she opens up for business. Now keep in mind, all of these things are happening very boom, boom, boom. These are major life events that are happening weeks apart. So even though they're married and they have this business and Mike has a good job and whatnot, there's quite a few issues. Let me give you the little list, okay? 1, they were newlyweds caring for a newborn. That'll stress you out. 2, Wendi was starting a brand new business, which quite frankly, she did not know how to operate, and it was a lot harder than she expected. 3, Mike's commute to work was atrocious. It was 3 hours there and 3 hours back. That guy was losing 6 to 7 hours a day just in travel and stopping for gas and traffic and whatnot. Having a long commute when you don't have like a little routine is soul sucking. It's soul sucking. Shout out to people that commute over an hour to work every day. You guys are true. But honestly, 45 minutes. God damn. Mike was traveling 3 hours. Number 4, and this one's brutal. For 4 people, Shane, Tristan, Wendi, and Michael, they had a cramped 1-bedroom apartment with no kitchen. The kitchen was just a sink, a hot plate, like an oven, and like one little counter spot. You know, they weren't whipping up big family meals there, and they ain't have no delivery. So this was a nightmare. Outside of the kitchen, the entire family also shared a full bathroom with other tenants and animals as well. In order to get to the bathroom, they had to walk out their back door and walk through another door to get to a kennel. But inside of the kennel was like a full bathroom, full shower, full toilet, full, bath, everything you needed. But it was, it wasn't right there inside of the home. And there's 4 of them. Like, this is just a lot. And to top it all off, every single day, Wendi's mom, Judy, she's talking shit about Michael. She just doesn't like him. Now, everything that was going on in the house, it was a lot of chaos. It was a lot of stress, and just all of that stuff was weaving into each other. But it all stopped about 4 months into the marriage, because on January 16th, 2005, Mike went missing. Literally, only 4 months into the marriage. So really quick for clarity. So the day that Mike went missing, Wendi and Mike were actually due to go on a trip together to visit Mike's family. Wendi calls Mike's parents and she says she can't find him. And she's like, oh my God, I can't find them. They said that she was kind of hysterical, but like I said, Wendi is an oddball. She's a kooky character. Her version of hysterical when she's acting, and I say acting because you guys were watching Sinister, you know what happened. It was probably very odd. And Mike's family didn't know how to take it because actually Mike is a big family person. Hence why he decided to get married to Wendi and give it a shot for their son Shane. He would not miss a trip. Like, they know this. They know it. And so Mike's mom is like, okay, well, calm down, Wendi. I'm sure he'll turn up. Like, your flight's in a couple of hours. And he would like not miss this trip at all. Like, she was kind of unconcerned, but this is how bad of an actor Wendi is. She's not like, oh my God, like he's gone. Something terrible's happened. She's just like awkward. And his mom's like, well, he'll turn up. But he doesn't. He doesn't turn up. Another interesting detail too was somebody in Mike's family asked Wendi when they would be getting on the plane. And Wendi actually said that she hadn't packed yet and she can't find Mike and the flight's in a couple hours and she doesn't know what to do. Why hadn't Wendi packed yet? It was an odd detail, but everyone knew Mike loved his family, so he would be home, right? Well, they missed the flight. And Wendi decides to call the police and report him as a missing person. So the police come in and a full-on investigation has been launched. And Wendi immediately was like, and God, keep in mind, she is just like not very convincing. Like the way she delivers information is weird and people always like take it a different way. But she comes in and she's like, well, Mike really didn't want to get deployed to Afghanistan. So maybe he went missing. Maybe he just went AWOL. They're like, okay. They talk to the family and Mike's dad is like, dude, something is off. This is weird. He does not miss family time. He hasn't called. Like, something is off. If he had just gone AWOL, he would have at least called us, And he's like, I can tell you right now, sir, I have not heard from my son. So the police are handling this, but also because he's a soldier and he's supposed to go back, they actually end up calling in the Air Force of Special Investigations. And the OSI does a little bit more digging. So both departments are handling this right now. And then the guy from the OSI that is doing an investigation to see if he actually just went AWOL, he comes back and he said, I've talked to a lot of people and this doesn't seem like somebody that was trying to like avoid duty. This is weird. This is really weird. And you would think that when presented with this information, Wendi might be concerned or something, but instead she gives more information. She says, what? I think he might have gone to Canada. And they're like, bitch, we don't think he went AWOL. What do you know? So now the police got most of their information from talking to Mike's family and understanding more about his character. And now they're like, you know what? Let's talk to his wife of 4 months. Let's go talk to her family. And oh my God, I mean, the lid immediately gets blown off because one of the first people they talk to is Judy. And Judy absolutely fucking hates him. And she walks right into the interrogation room on video, everything, just me, just immediately talking smack about Mike. And it's interesting because one, we know at this point now, and I'll tell you this, that Mike is dead. At the time of this interrogation, he had been murdered. So if Judy is talking this much crap knowing that Mike is dead, imagine how much mess she was talking to his face when he was alive. So she goes into the interrogation room and she says right away, opens her mouth and says, I'm not going to lie. I didn't like him. Never did, never will. She's just so resolute with it. And the officers are like, tell me more. She's like, he's lazy. He's a piece of shit. She's just going off. And it wasn't really clear why Judy didn't like him. It's almost like all of her reasons didn't really have enough weight. But she did talk a lot about him being from up north. So the police are a little confused by this. And at this point, they just mark Judy as a suspect. Now, OSI and the police are working on this case. And something interesting pops up 2 days after Wendi reports him missing on January 18th. She filed for divorce and she petitioned for a restraining order. Now, I don't know why she did that, but it definitely raised alarm bells for the police. However, at this point, Mike had been missing for quite a while. He had officially gone AWOL, so the investigation was entirely turned over to the military. Well, OSI, and now it's a deserter investigation. All eyes are on Wendi. They start digging through her business, digging through her history, digging through her past. And this was interesting too. This became a point of contention later in the trial, but because the Air Force was involved, they got to actually do some interesting maneuvers. They got approval to put a tracking device on Wendi's car to see where she was going. A big part of the reason why the tracker got court approved is because they thought that it was an AWOL investigation and that maybe Wendi or her business partner, Terrell, the guy that bought the clinic, they thought that one of them might be helping Mike hide. So they needed to see where Wendi was traveling to and from to figure out where the deserter was, or perceived deserter. So Terrell also had this ranch a couple miles outside of where they lived in San Angelo. And first, the OSI, they're like, well, we want to see the ranch. And Terrell brings him there, and there's nothing. There's no viable living conditions. There's no trace of food, water, nobody's living there very clearly. They're also able to explore on their own. They have an access key, and they're just not finding any trace of Mike or anybody staying here. However, we're about to have a break in the case when police decide to sit down and speak with Wendi for a longer interrogation. Before the interrogation, they grabbed her computer and they found some very interesting search results. For the past 24 hours, Wendi had been searching A, how to beat a polygraph test, and B, how fast does a body decompose in water? If you were a smart officer, you would be looking at every body of water in a 200-mile radius. But they didn't have to look at every single pond. They just had to look at the tracker and pay attention to the pond that Wendi kept visiting. So, of course, they're suspicious about this pond. And not only are they getting ready to head over there, but during the interrogation, they kind of ask her a few questions about it. And whenever the pond comes up, she gets a little nervous. She gets a little choked up. She's showing what they describe as, quote, interest in the pond. Like her brain has a different reaction to the pond. The interrogation ends and she's free to go. And the first place she goes is to the ranch. The pond was like on the way to the ranch. She gets there and the police are still there looking through everything, and they deny her access to the ranch and the pond. They're everywhere. And in this moment, she freaks out and she decides to call her brother. This is what everyone does in body cam footage when they've done something wrong and they want someone to help it. They call the first police officer that they know. And that was her brother, except her brother wasn't an officer. He was a game warden. He was basically like a wildlife police guy. Yes, we had Dr. Dolittle dad, we had vet daughter, and then we had game warden brother. Let me give you the exact definition. It says a game warden is a law enforcement professional who protects and enforces law related to wildlife, hunting, fishing, boating, trapping, and outdoor recreation. So she calls her brother. I don't know what she thought that he was going to do, but she is so panicked seeing all of these officers near the pond. She gives him a story. This is her story. I found Mike in the living room, dead, so I moved the body. That's what she said. She told her brother that she came home. He was already dead. And so she just moved the body. And her brother says, where did you move the body? And she told him the pond. And he was like, okay. They get off the phone. And then her brother calls the police department and says, hey, Michael, who's missing, his body might be in the pond. He immediately called the police because he's a cop. He is. He might be a bird cop, but he's still a cop. This happened. Boom, boom, boom. He wasted absolutely no time. Wendi was still at the scene. Now, they hadn't found the body yet in the pond. They have to send like a boat team and divers out there to do that. But they knew when they got there that Mike was in that pond. So with this new admission to another police officer, her brother, they're actually able to arrest her for possibly tampering with evidence. And when they arrest Wendi and they drag her off, she yells, I didn't kill him, but somebody did. I thought one of you did it, so I moved the body to protect you. So on March 5th, 2005, just about a month and a half after Mike had gone missing, she's officially charged with tampering with evidence. Wendi refuses to be interviewed and she requests an attorney. I think one of the few things that she says is, how can I trust y'all if I can't even trust my brother? Well, you killed somebody and then you called a cop, but okay. And she just keeps requesting an attorney. And they kind of try to get her to talk, but eventually they let it go. So then they go and speak to her brother, and he's just very matter of fact with it. This guy is just by the book. They asked him a couple questions about the call and what did he think, and he tells them, well, it looks real bad when somebody moves a body. I mean, yeah, he might be a bird cop, but he knows people don't move no body. You don't find a dead body and say, well, let me get rid of this so nobody asks me any questions. It just doesn't work that way. He knows it. They then asked if he actually believes that Wendi would have been able to transport Mike from the clinic and dump him into the water without help. And he said, she can pick me up and he was my size. She didn't have to move him very far to get him there. Yeah, it's possible she could do it. He is just firing off on all cylinders. He really is. And thank God he is too. Like, I mean, protect her. Why? Wendy's an oddball. She's a very oddball character. And this is going to make her even stranger. So the next day, they are in pursuit all night to find Mike. And they do. The divers find him. The interesting thing is he was weighed down with over 140 pounds of random objects. A brake drum, a cinder block, a wheel rim, a boat anchor. These things were all tied to his body and he was dropped into the water. And when they pulled him out, the immediate perceived cause of death was a stabbing. He had been stabbed over 41 times in the torso. And viciously, it had gone all the way through his body. But there was something strange about the knife wounds. It seemed like they could have possibly been done post-mortem, after Mike was murdered. So they send the body off to the coroner, and they find that he actually was killed by animal tranquilizers. He had a cocktail of pentobarbital and phenobarbital. These drugs were the confirmed cause of death. So the knife wounds were just still kind of a detail that was up in the air and the police didn't understand. I mean, all eyes have been on Wendi from the beginning, but now all eyes are really on Wendi. Even though she owned the practice, they still kept logs, like fairly accurate logs of all the medication that was being used. There was one record where it said that Wendi was supposed to euthanize a dog using the phenobarbital, but it turned out that dog was still alive. When they called the owner said, "My dog has never been scheduled for anything like that, and my dog is perfectly healthy." So it was a false record of euthanization for this animal that basically showed the investigators that Wendi knowingly planned and took this phenobarbital home while claiming that it was being used at the clinic. It is such an overwhelming amount of evidence. She got charged with tampering and now first-degree intentional homicide. So we're in court. And of course, the first thing that Wendi's attorney is going to try to do is to get that tracking device thrown out of evidence. It does not work. OSI steps in and says, "Oh no, we thought this was an AWOL case. We have full permission to put this tracker on the car." And ultimately, the court decides to uphold the evidence and say that it's admissible. They actually had quite a bit that could have put Wendi away, but this tracking device and her going to the pond so frequently was huge. They were not able to scrap that from evidence. So Wendi's attorney basically kind of had her do this plea deal where she accepts the sentencing, but she never admits to any type of crime. Basically pleading no contest, so you can like skip the whole trial, get your sentencing, and then go from there. Saves a lot of money too. Now, before we get to the sentencing, you're probably wondering about the post-mortem stab wounds, because I was like, what? Why would this happen? You know? Later, in an interrogation and also in an interview, Wendi explained exactly what that was. She claims, and I mean, she also said this very matter-of-factly, that she was concerned that the body would float, so she stabbed him through his body so that it would go all the way through and the water could pass through him and drag him down. That's why she stabbed him 41 times through his entire torso after she murdered him. Just grim, just dark. But it was a speedy trial. Wendi ultimately was sentenced to 25 years in prison for tampering with the evidence and also the first-degree murder of her husband. But she was up for parole in May of 2019. They denied it, though. Her record says, elements of brutality, violence, assaultive behavior with a conscious disregard for the lives, safety, or property of others. They deemed her still a, quote, threat to public safety. There's so many loose ends with this case. Mike's family has been trying to make more sense of it for years. They had only been married for 4 months when she decided to murder her husband. Like, was there money involved? Was she supposed to get some kind of payment because she was a military spouse? There was a chance that she may have gotten $500,000 in military life insurance. But who knows if Wendi even knew that was possible. Also, there's Judy and Lloyd, Wendi's parents. Some people wonder if they had any type of involvement. Now, here, we don't, speculate and throw random people under the bus and go find them online and do things. Don't do that. But yeah, it is pretty interesting that Wendi was able to transport this man and then callously stab him post-mortem and then tie over 100 pounds of weights to his body before dumping him in a pond. Strange. And then also, the last thing that just really gets me, when I meet somebody that loves animals and couldn't hurt a fly, I think, oh wow, they're a really sweet person. This person must be really safe. So Wendi is a terrifying character because she couldn't hurt a fly. She couldn't hurt an animal, but she could kill her husband that she was only married to for 4 months.